interesting because it is, compared to your traditional gallery space, it's relatively tight. You know, it's a very compact kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
There feels there's space for them to breathe, to be completely alone but together on each kind of wall.
Yeah. Yeah, they have just the right amount of breathing space. That's so important, isn't it? Yeah, could hardly be better.
How did you decide, or how do you figure out which order and where paintings go, and specifically these?
I knew that the larger walls, that these two walls, for a start, it was clear that these were for the bigger paintings, these were for the smaller paintings. But when you enter from here, it also I wanted a strong beginning, and I feel that that is the stronger painting of the smaller paintings. They're both good, but this one is really good, I think. So I wanted that to open it, and to then see the other one and become peripherally aware of this, but to conclude with the biggest painting. So and this, is so strong that, so I think it begins strong and then it ends strong. And the wall size is perfect in every case. So in a way, it wrote itself. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of impressed that the paintings came in and were against the wall. It was instant kind of, they were leaned on the walls by the time I was here. It wasn't a big, contemplation.
No.
They knew where they needed to be.
It was really pretty obvious how it had to work. You had to end with this one, so it had to be at the end of the room, and you really had to begin with this. A strong beginning, a strong ending. Yeah. And they're exactly in position, exactly to the 1/8 of an inch, which I think is very, very important. Paintings, I think, are sacred things. Sacred physical objects, almost like ritualistic objects. They're not merchandise, they're not products. That's not what they're for. It would be like selling a love affair.
If one of the paintings were to sell,
Mm.
would you feel that, these four feel so kind of united in space? Do you think it would still work in a manner without one? There's kind of a balance to it.
I suppose you'd have to rethink the room, really. Rethink the whole thing. You couldn't just take one out, leave that blank and expect the rest of the cycle to work necessarily. So, yeah, it would require rethinking. And I like the idea of people acquiring them, because then they begin their own journey. Paintings begin with the artist, but then they go on their own journey. Generations. Who knows? Who knows where they end up? And I think it's an honour. That's how I feel about it. I don't feel bad about it. I think it's an honour, because there'll be people that grow up next to these paintings that always remember that painting on the wall when they were growing up. I really like that.
Do you have like if people was to come in here, look at all 4 of the paintings and leave, do you have or do you not have a kind of feeling of what you want them to feel? Just kind of left with something?
No, I really don't have any particular hopes for anyone in that regard, or wish that they would feel a certain thing. And the reason for that is that they bring their own lives to bear on them. That's impossible for us to know, isn't it? Their own human experience, the broken hearts they've had, the lives they've led, and when they come in front of one of these paintings that has had its own life, who knows what the cocktail of that experience is. I never try to handle that or have hopes or wishes or plans or anything for that. I don't think you can ever anticipate. I used to at one time in America do cocktail parties where I would speak and talk to one of my collectors and a room full of guests, and I did that for years and years. And it was always really fascinating because I would talk about the work, and at the end people would come up and talk to me, and so I would be standing next to a painting, and someone would come up and say, oh, I could never live with this painting because it's just so dark. And so, oh, okay, well, yeah, everyone has their own theory about it. And then the next a couple would come up and say, wow, this is so full of love, this painting, and it's really overwhelming. And the next person would come up and say, why are they so angry? And so forth. And everyone would have their own theory about the painting, because what they probably didn't realize was that everything is a mirror. It's 50% mirror, 50% what it is, and 50% they're telling me really about themselves. Yeah. So that always fascinated me, because I began by thinking that things were what they were, and that would be how they were perceived, and the viewer would either be right or wrong in the perception. But then I realized, not at all. Things are not. They begin to exist when they're perceived, and the perception's different from person to person, so totally different.
There's a real letting go of, I think, particularly early stages of creating of, this must be understood in this way. This is my thing, it's this way, and the minute, to kind of release that and to allow it to be the artwork that's separate from you, to be absorbed and interpreted by everyone, but it is, like, I've got a dance background, and so I put, I have the piece go out, and you always have to write a kind of blurb. But if someone hadn't read the blurb, they would say, oh, it's a brilliant thing about this and this. And oh, do you not read all this,
Yeah.
This is what it is, but they, their life connects to it, you go beyond kind of what you're expected to completely, what you're trying to see rather than actually just seeing.
Yeah, they all have a different view, don't they, completely. And as regards the paintings themselves of me, even I am only loosely connected with them, because I have a sense of what I was looking for or what I was finding, but a lot of my interaction with the painting is very loose. Very loose and unspecific, and to do with bringing that about in an engineering sense, but also being hands off, allowing it the freedom to evolve, and I'll respond to that and try to help it along to become what it can become. So even I am only partially related to what happens. Yeah, maybe paintings come through us, not from us, in a sense.
You were saying that these are the last of your works that kind of really sit in realism. How does that feel to kind of feel there's a identifiable kind of end? You know, so often we don't know where something stops, but there's this feeling that this is a stop and end of a period.
I believe it is. I mean, I may be mistaken there. Something could happen, but I believe it is the end of realistic paintings for me. And I have to say that there's a kind of grief in that. There really is. It's very sad to me in one way. But it's now beyond me to make these paintings. It's beyond me now. I can't do this anymore. Whereas making the paintings that are abstract and are about form and colour and writing interwoven, that to me is a new challenge and is exciting, and it takes it to another level. I find that very interesting. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'll try simply not to think about the passing of this period, because it's most of what I've known for my whole life. So I don't know what I think about that. I find that difficult. It's all I've ever known.
There is something exciting about the kind of compounded knowledge that's here, you know, all of that to then go completely to transcend human form, to transcend, to go into the emotion. I was reading Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Acts. There's a section where you can, master an art and kind of find a way of doing it, and they'll come to a point where it no longer resonates or it no longer kind of works, and you'll try a new approach, and instinctually, everything you've always done comes back, but that kind of starting it in a completely different way, or approaching it with a completely different intention or whatever you want to call it, summon something else, but you kind of, everything that's there is still part of it. But it's exciting, I think, to be so aware and kind of so honest, because it would be, I think most people would feel like, oh, if you've been doing it this long, why rock the boat now?
Yeah, I just don't, because I don't make products, and because I don't feel obliged, in that way, to continue doing what I've been doing. It feels obvious to me. But I have to say, though, that a big change came over me 7 months ago, 7 months. I went to an island in the Mediterranean and coached 60 or 70 artists, along with 6 other mentors. And I've done it once since. I'm doing it again in October. And it had such an enormous effect on me, on this deserted island, no phones, just coaching, sunshine, people really finding themselves, had an enormous effect. And I came to a few conclusions. I decided that I wanted to not be involved anymore with so-called important people from the art world, that didn't have respect, common respect and fairness and courtesy. And that my ambition had always been to do solo exhibitions in New York, was always the thing. That simply evaporated, you know. How I look now, how I look to the world is very secondary. And then I realized this chapter has ended. I started writing short stories. I've written all my life, but I started writing. I'm absolutely loving writing. I love helping people, mentoring people. And I love time with the people that I really understand and enjoy. Those four things, I mean, that now is the life that I seek. A complete change. It was due. It was time to, in a sense, be honest about what I really wanted and who I really am. Yeah. And give up the foolishness, foolish ambitions that lead to nothing. Yeah.
Let's look at this. Yeah. I mean, that feels like it could be an end. The only thing I was going to say is, it feels maybe kind of airy, if you had kind of last words for the room and the paintings. It's kind of sense of if you were leaving in a minute. It's very abstract, but the sense of, is there any kind of last thing you'd want to say to the paintings or to the room?
I'm a bit of a coward, and I try to avoid emotionally overwhelming situations that consume me in that way. And in a short while, when we leave, actually, I'll just turn my back and leave. If I was to try to do something more appropriate, it would hurt. Yeah. I love this. And it is now a previous chapter. Time to go. You know that mystic thing, brush the dust off your feet and move on. Yeah. The next stage.